Welcome back to County Connection. For the final segment of our June episode, we're going to be talking about swiftwater safety. And lucky for us, we have some experts in the field. We have from the Summit County Swiftwater Rescue Team, Ranger John Reller and Ranger Erin Sirck. Welcome, John and Erin.
Thanks, good to see you.
And you may see John and Erin's faces around the reservoir this summer because they also are boat patrol for the Summit County Sheriff's Office. So definitely experts when it comes to safety on the water. John and Erin, this time of year, what should people be thinking about in terms of their own safety as that relates to swiftwater?
We got to start thinking about obviously the water coming up due to the runoff. People are no longer recreating up at their favorite ski areas that still have a lot of snow up there.
Right.
Days are getting longer, warmer, and people are starting to recreate. Campgrounds, hiking, biking, and all those are typically around water, if not being directly on the water, whether it's rafting or fishing.
Right. So when we do get this warm-up period and there still is plenty of snow up high, what kind of a time frame are we talking about?
It's going to be a bit weather dependent, but at least for the next month, we're going to be experience runoff at varying levels based on weather and what it's doing.
Right. And how different would you say these levels can be this time of year relative to other times of year? So if people are kind of used to the type flows that they may see at other times of year when they're playing around these waterways or what have you, what kind of a scale are we talking about here?
Drastically different. From being able to wade across a small creek that you wouldn't even think twice about to it basically being impossible. You'd be swept away with some serious consequences. Okay.
And then the conditions vary from one year to the next based on how much snowpack we have and what the weather conditions. So what are we looking like? How's this year comparing to other years?
This year we seem to be anywhere from 120 to 150% of our snowpack. So the last time we had conditions like this was 2014 and more significantly in 2011. So we could potentially have a higher runoff and faster levels this year.
Okay. And 2014 was the year that we had that really big incident up in Montezuma with the Snake River. Is that right?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Washing out the bridge and isolating folks for a little bit.
Yeah, things got a little crazy. So how does the weather play into the situation? Because snowpack is only one part of the equation, right?
Right. Weather is the biggest part of the equation. Ideally, we'd like to see warm days and cooler nights and have a nice steady runoff. Back in 2014, we had a really warm spell. Hot days and warm nights, so it never really slowed down. It just continued to build. So you get into the extreme cases where you end up with flooding and things being washed out. So it's all weather dependent, having that nice steady runoff, and it also can be influenced by rain that comes through. And it might not be right where we are, it might be upstream, up in the high valleys.
Right.
That rain is going to help melt snow, but also add water to the runoff very quickly.
So then really this entire month and late May and most of June, we should have kind of a heightened awareness and be more cautious around our waterways. But particularly when we're having these hot spells or rain on snow, what kinds of precautions should people be taking to protect themselves and their kids and their pets?
Just an overall awareness. Staying a safe distance away from the water. Most accidents happen within 10 feet of the water's edge, whether it's in the water or on land. So give yourself a little bit of buffer. Watch what your kids are doing. Keep them away. If your dog or pet is prone to running in the water, keep them on leash. Don't throw the ball or stick, obviously, in the water for them. Being aware of your surroundings when you're camping, parking the vehicle, in that water is going to rise throughout the day and into the evening. So setting up your camp in a safe, appropriate place is important as well.
Right. And I think that's an interesting point because a lot of times if you're setting up your tent in the afternoon, it's a beautiful sunny day and you want to let the river sing you to sleep, but the daily cycle of the river is something to keep in mind, right? So what time typically do flows peak?
After dark.
Okay.
You know, anywhere from late afternoon until well into the evening, and it's not until after midnight typically that it's going to start to go back down
Okay.
in the water levels.
All right, so don't get too close.
And the other thing to consider is the afternoon storms. When we have big storms come through and increased rain, that it might rise faster than you're expecting it to. So keep that in mind again when you're setting up your camp.
Okay, and then how about driving? So there's some considerations that you need to take into account if you're in a vehicle and you see either moving or standing water. Whoops. What kinds of things should people be thinking about when they're driving?
Don't drive into moving water. I mean, if you can't see the bottom, there's a chance that the road has been washed out, the bridge hasn't been washed out, or you plain get stuck. And in fast enough moving water, 6 inches of water will move a vehicle.
Right.
So you don't want to be driving into water.
Yeah, you're more vulnerable than you think.
Exactly. Nothing is worth what could happen driving into the moving water.
Right. So you folks run into people on their worst days. What are some of the common mistakes that you see people making around the water?
Underestimating the power of the water is probably number one. And along those lines, the temperature of the water as well. Again, this is snowmelt. So it can literally be in the 30s. I mean,
Right.
really cold. So hypothermia can set in very quickly. But the power of the water is the number one factor that people don't realize. You might be able to walk or stand in a couple inches of water, but if you were to fall over, it's going to sweep you away and you're not going to be able to stand back up. The dangers of spring runoff also are strainers downstream, you know, creating entrapment points that the water is going to go through, but objects won't. Not having the right equipment. You know, you can
Right.
get plenty of equipment, whether it's from Walmart or Target, that's a lot of fun and appropriate for the pool or a lake, but not for swift water and moving water. So having the right equipment as well is a mistake that we see fairly frequently.
Right. And I think that you do see there are places like Steamboat or Boulder where tubing is a very commonly enjoyed activity, but it's probably not the best idea in Summit County.
No, we really don't have a place that lends itself to safe tubing.
Right. All right. So speaking of gear and equipment, Erin, can you take us on a tour of the types of equipment that are important to have when you're around swiftwater?
Sure. The minimum that we recommend you have, again, when you're within 10 feet of swiftwater, PFD, personal flotation device, should be wearable and Coast Guard approved. So sometimes when you go like to Walmart or Target and you're buying some of the gear that might come with the raft or the kayak that you're buying there, there's nice cushions that to blow up. Someone might think, oh, this is a good personal flotation device, where in reality it's not. You really need to have a wearable flotation device. On your flotation device, have a whistle for signaling the folks that you're with if you're performing a rescue, or to signal for help if you are the one that's caught. We in rescue, we always carry a knife as well, some other gear, but helmet recommended, and gloves. Am I missing anything?
No, that would be the minimum. And then after that, we add on based on the situation.
Sure. And you know, when we're talking about, because I know that one of the places that you folks often see people doing it wrong is in the 10 Mile Creek through Frisco. There's sections that may not look that intimidating, and in fact, that's a real rafting or kayaking run sometimes. So how about take us on a tour of some of these other items here and let us know what they're used for.
So we've got a couple different types of throw bags here. And what we want to accomplish with those typically is to get somebody out of the water that's floating down or stuck on a rock or out there in the middle. It's far safer for us to be able to reach to them, whether it's with a paddle or a branch. If we can't do that, then we'll throw them a rope and have pull them in to where we are using that rope. As a last resort, we will, if we can do it safely, go out to them. But the throw bag is one of our vital tools, and these are just 3 different types of throw bags.
All right. And so if someone does fall into a local river or stream inadvertently, what should they do to best protect themselves?
If you're the person that fell in, we call it the defensive swimming position. To get on your back, feet downstream and up, so that you can protect yourself from rocks, and avoid getting foot entrapment by having your feet down on the bottom of the river, which can be a very serious problem. Arms out to the side so you can stabilize yourself, and head up looking downstream to make sure that you're not headed for a strainer or another obstacle. Once you can swim in some lesser rapids or flat water, swim aggressively to a safe spot.
Okay.
Swim until it's too shallow to swim, and then crawl until you're in very shallow water before you get up and stand. Again, the water can knock you back over, foot entrapment, problems like that. So crawl until you can get out, and then obviously you want to get dry and get warm, and let somebody know. Somebody's probably called 911. Make that call that you're out of the water so that we can slow down. We don't mind at all. We want that call. But
Right.
let us know when you get out. And also let us know if your equipment might still be stuck in the river. Somebody else will see that and think, oh my gosh, something bad has happened here. Where are the people?
Right.
That way we're aware of
Right.
equipment that's in the water.
Right. We wouldn't want to activate your entire crew to go out and rescue a helmet or something.
Well, not for the 3rd or 4th time. The first time, absolutely, we want to know about it. We don't mind that call. We'd rather be stood down part way there. That's
right.
not a problem. It's the 3rd or 4th call for that same helmet that we want to try to avoid.
Gotcha.
And safe dispatch the numerous 911 calls that they're going to get for that
Right.
object that's stuck in the water.
All right. Sounds good. Let's see. Any other tips or things we should be thinking about this time of year related to our rivers and streams and the spring runoff?
I think the biggest thing is just be prepared. Be aware of your surroundings. Have fun, but be safe. If you don't know, don't put yourself in a bad situation.
All right, good advice. And lastly, if people are looking for more information about flood preparedness and swiftwater safety, where can they get that info?
From the Summit County website, there's also a booklet that they put out, the disaster preparedness booklet put out by Summit County and all the agencies in it. A lot of good information, both those spots.
All right, perfect. Well, Erin and John, thanks so much for coming into the SCTV studio today and sharing your expertise with us. And I wish you a happy and safe spring runoff season.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
All right. And thanks to those of you who've joined us at home for another episode of County Connection. We look forward to seeing you next month.